All right, it is 7:01. I'm going to call the meeting of the Board of Selectmen to order. First item of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. Heather, would you lead us, please?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, all members of the board are here and present. First item is going to be approval of the meeting minutes from January 15th. They're in your packet. I have a motion, please.
I move to approve the meeting minutes of January 15th, 2026.
Is there a second? Second. Moved and seconded. Are there any corrections?
I just would like to have it added that I had raised concerns about the ad hoc and I had requested to be on it and Rick was asked. I understand in the end it worked itself out, but I just want it noted in the record.
Sure.
Thank you.
Are there any other corrections? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Public participation, one of two opportunities for members of the public to address the board. First, ask if there's anybody here in the room who would like to address the board, and then provide anybody online with the same opportunity. Is there anybody here present who would like to address the Board of Selectmen? If so, state your name and your address. Asking a second time? Asking a third time? Is there anybody online who would like to address the board? Okay. Then we'll move on to communications. It is Black History Month, so there's a proclamation in your packet to that effect. On to boards and commissions, we have one new appointment to fill a Board of Assessment Appeals regular member vacancy. Marie D'Souza has stepped forward at my request. Thank you for that. To fill that vacancy. As long as people keep answering the phone. May I have a motion, please?
I'll make a motion to appoint Marie D'Souza to the Board of Assessment Appeals.
Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? Thank you very much. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Everything. Next year.
Because of the delay in the revale? Yeah. Not of the assessment, rather. Thank you. Okay, we're going to turn now to Melissa is not here. Len, are you able to speak to the 860 Rides Fund initiative? Okay. If we could set that aside for the time being, we're going to come back to that.
There's a motion to postpone that item.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right. So, Mr. Norton, now the floor is yours. We're talking about lot zip.
Good evening. So we are looking to secure a couple of grants to continue with some sidewalks in town. We have to get an application in, so Jason wanted me to come by and explain what we were planning to do. You probably got it all emailed to you, hopefully. Okay, good. Because I actually tried to print bigger copies, but I wasn't able to. So anyhow, we're looking to get a couple of grants for some sidewalks. First, the first one we're looking to do is we just completed the sidewalks out here going down Reservoir to Perry, up Windsorville to Reservoir, and then down Depot Street to Perry. So what our first application will be is to continue out Reservoir Avenue and Depot Street and connect across East Road. So we'll have even a bigger loop out that way to bring that residents can get actually to the center of town, to the park, to the dog park, skate, whatever. So that's our first application. We're allowed, each application or project is allowed, $1.5 million. Ruth through Krog, has Beta helping with the application, the actual application. I guess Krog provides that service. So I came up with the route, I came up with a price. Beta came up with a much bigger price, which I believe is incorrect, and I finally convinced them that it was. But anyhow, for the estimate, their cost estimate for that route, Reservoir Depot to East, is $1.494 million, which brings us under the $1.5 million cap that we're allowed to get. And you can see on the maps that you had that, we got to fool around with a stone wall here, extend the culvert there, but that's all included in the cost. So I honestly think we can do it for less than that, based upon the costs that where we just did the sidewalk. We still have a little difference of opinion between Beta and myself, but that's okay. So the next project we are looking to do is to try and get people to the park, Osborne Park. So some of you weren't here, but previously I've tried to get a sidewalk from like Warehouse Point Center to Osborne, and it's near impossible. There are too many constraints. South Water Street, you're either in somebody's front porch, you go on the other side, the slopes drop off, you're in the floodplain, you have to fill the floodplain. Trying to come down Main Street, the overpass for 91, you just can't get by it. The abutments come right down to the edge of the road. You'd be bringing people out into the road or tunneling under so that just didn't seem to work out. We have Plan B in your packet, which will bring residents from Route 5. And Route 5, we have across the street, we have Pasco Commons. To the south, we have the condos, I forget what they're called, but the condos just to the south of South Water Street. So we now propose to run a sidewalk from Route 5, connect to the existing sidewalk that was built for the Silverman Group there for coming around to their piece of property, reconnect on the other end of that and run them on the east side of South Water Street all the way down to Volunteer Park. Volunteer Park and Osborne Field, that you'll be able to get to either. So and they're rough sketch, ideas as to where we want to do. We still have to do survey and actually design the sidewalk. We're going to have some a little more constraints on this side, because when we get down to where the Blue Ditch or the brook crosses under South Water Street by the highway, there's slopes on both sides. We believe we can. I initially thought I might have to kind of go over to the west side and then come back to the east side, but we were looking at it, Beta and I, and it looks like maybe we can keep it on the east side, and we've made arrangements or accommodations for a wall if we need to in the costs and what have you, and then under the overpass and then across through the sewer plant and then to Osborne Field. So they have an estimated cost of 1.291, basically $1.3 million to do that. And I think there's plenty of, the way the lot set projects are with the allowances that they make you put in for, I think we're well there too, because they have, traffic control. They got $25,000 in there to hire flaggers and what have you. When we did the project over here, we put a flagger. We used 1 or 2 flaggers depending on what we needed. South Water Street, we may need a flagging company. We may need a cop on occasion, but we've got money in there for that, you know. So those are the 2 proposals. We wanted to bring them to the board. Let you see if you had any comments or thoughts on before I think, when do we have to have this in?
February 18th.
February 18th. So in case there were any comments from the board, we could incorporate that or look into that prior to,
When should you hear about it?
pardon?
When will they make a decision on the grant? When should you hear about it?
Honestly, I don't know when they'll make a decision on the grant, but the way they're talking, this probably won't go to construction till probably 2028. I mean, by the time they have to decide who's going to get the grant. You have to do the survey field work. You got to do preliminary design plans, and you got to do final design plans, and they review these all the way through the process. And I've been 6 years trying to get a culvert under Highland Avenue with, COVID didn't help, and the fact that the state is still working from home doesn't help. But
So the process with this, though, we're putting in the applications to the Capital Region Council of Governments. Their transportation committee, which Len is a member of, will review the application and then recommend to DOT, who does their own thing. So there's kind of a redundant review process. A couple points that I'm just going to add in here because I understand them, but others may not have picked it up. We're only allowed 2 sidewalk applications. It can't be more than $1.5 million. We're not guaranteed to get either of them. We might get both of them. We might get one of them. We might not get any of them. Just for the tables information, we had tried to put together a third option, which would have been to run the sidewalks down Rye Street, up Hayfield, up Norton, and up Old Ellington. But that was cost prohibitive. It would have been in excess of what the allowable cap is for each application, which we could have done, but that would have meant that we would have had to have closed the gap. If these both were approved with the budget numbers penciling out the way that they are expected to, this would cost the town of East Windsor nothing. These would be effectively free to us, paid for by Watson.
So, I mean, last time we talked about this, the Warehouse Point side, we're trying to close that gap, obviously, to get to Osborne from the neighborhood. But also the secondary part of that was to, there's a lot of people that are walking out of that neighborhood to go work at one of the, stores there. So they're walking that pathway underneath the highway and along there, which is probably not great. And you couldn't really find a way to do that, huh?
the problem is, if you, I don't have it with me, but if you just for your own benefit, if you go to either Google Earth or go to our town website, go to our GIS, take the little man and put them in Main Street, right by that bridge abutment, and have them look either north or south, depending on what side you're on. Those 2 bridge abutments basically come right down. There's a little bit of a shoulder there, but those bridge abutments, there's no way we could put a sidewalk and have pedestrians safely walking through that tunnel, basically.
So, yeah, and I see that, but when I drove by there, I've been thinking about this sidewalk for probably far too long, but I always thought that, maybe we could go on the other side of the Jersey barrier where, currently is that, they have, it's the ramp up, where they've embanked up to the bridge, so you've got the barrier and then like it's ramped up to the abutment, I guess. I thought maybe they could adjust that somehow, but is that not? And
I don't think they'd like us doing that. And I don't think we want to put people in, that's really, I mean, there's no way to put any barrier there between the people. You'd be almost at grade with the road. The people would be walking, I mean,
if you compare,
I don't know why people walk there to begin with, but I'm sure they do.
they do because they
Yeah.
don't have a car and they need to
Right.
work. So,
But at least we didn't put a sidewalk there encouraging them to do it.
Yeah.
If we did that and somebody got killed, then we're probably responsible.
Like I compare it to the one on 140 where the bridge is, that's pretty tight there too. Like
Yeah.
they fit that in.
So I mean, short of taking out the breakdown lane, there is just, you can see Len's point, there isn't anywhere to walk.
And they won't adjust that breakdown lane.
No, Chief Carl, are you, you're familiar with OSTR regulations in terms of what the breakdown lane needs to be on a state highway? Is there any flexibility there? I know I'm catching you off guard. If you're not sure, you can just say that.
No, exactly.
Okay.
The book is like this thing. You can certainly get the answer to you.
And I know that's the problem, and that's a terrible design, and it's a very limiting factor, but it's unfortunate that we can't, and I know if we could get the other way, which there's the other problems of you're in somebody's front yard or you're filling in the flood zone, then you could get people to work that way if they wanted to go that way, but because there's like going the other way, trying to get, like if you were to go up 140 and then try to get, across the street at Sophia's Plaza, that's a game of Frogger right there. You're guaranteed to get killed. So there's no way, like you're locked in. There's no way to get out of there.
There is, Jason, correct me if I misspeak. We're also looking at a safety program with another gentleman at CROG. And that intersection is one of the areas we're looking at to do something with it because, it's noticed as a place that there's issues. There's been a few crashes, I think, but you're right. There's no real good crosswalk there to go anywhere. And that we are looking into doing something up there. It hasn't even been thought about yet as far as what we might do, but it's on the radar to have it looked at.
Paul said he's got some ideas. There's some plans.
Yes.
Concepts.
Exactly. And that's part of what we're talking about with Roger at CROG. So gentlemen, different.
Other than that problem, which I know is in this case unsurmountable, I'm absolutely for this. I think we need more walkability.
Other questions or comments? So you guys know, we're gonna try and put forward both these applications. Again, there's a zero cost component to the town. We're gonna hope we get them both, see what happens.
Will there be a priority placed on one or the other?
I don't know, you know what, that's something we should talk about. I don't know if we get to assign a priority, but if we did, that's something that you all can decide. We can at least have that as an option if we're able to do it.
Yeah, they weren't really. Yeah, I wonder if they're gonna say, yeah, we'll give you this one, but not that one. Or if they would say, we'll give you one of them, pick.
So one of the, just by way of some additional background, one of the disputes between Len and the consultant who's doing this was the cost per linear foot. The sidewalk project that we just did, what was it, $92 a linear foot?
95.
95. We just were out to bid last year and got a very high quality project for that. They're saying you're not going to get anything less than $350 a linear foot. They're pointing at projects along the Berlin Turnpike and whatever the state highway is along West Haven.
And Bloomfield on Cottrell Road or Elm Street. And yeah, they all state highways, all highly, just.
So it could be at the end of the day that the pricing that we're putting forward is, to Ben's point, far in excess of what we actually need. At which point what Satoria told us is that we would be able to revisit with them and amend or extend an additional project. So we might be able to go 1,000 feet down Rye Street if the funding lines up for that. But we don't know that because right now we're kind of working on a compromise per linear foot cost.
Where you have all the abutments where you said you couldn't get through with the picture that was up there?
That's on Main Street in Warehouse Point.
Okay, I've seen sidewalks that run behind those.
Yeah, but the soil is right
Yeah,
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
But
And
wouldn't
of
you
course,
be able to-
DOT has to re-engineer the bridge, but you'd have to dig that all out and redo that footing for the bridge, right?
well, maybe you'd only have to do, 6 feet up.
Well, it may need a wall. It would certainly need DOT approval because,
$150 a foot. I mean,
Well, that's-
you could do it.
Yeah, well, that's the
So
thing.
we-
well, if we're using those numbers, we might.
I know it's too late in this game to do that, but, I have seen that. Oh, I've seen it.
Gets us a little closer to the goal, so.
So I'll start with Bob.
Pick one?
Pick one. A and B, A and B.
Oh,
Which is A and which is B?
I'd actually go for the South Water myself. It's my priority.
I would also go South Water. I think there's more walkers.
South Water.
I agree.
All right. So if we get to rank the projects in terms of what our priorities will be, South Water Street will be our 1A ask and the extension in Broadbrook would be our second one. In the event that they tell us, no, this is the project that we're going to fund, that's what the answer's going to be.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe in our next meeting, we can ask that question. Our next team's meeting, we can ask the
Do
question.
we have another one before the 18th?
I thought we do not have one scheduled, but I thought we were going to try to have at least squeeze one in there to go with the plans and with the final, all that. And
Yeah, my recollection is you were to circle back with them after this meeting tomorrow.
yes, I'm supposed to get back to them tomorrow and tell them how we did. And that can be one of the questions, actually. Do we get, or unless we're going to have a Teams meeting, how do we prioritize? Can we pick the one we want the best? Or are you going to tell us what, we can ask that question.
We emphatically like them both and would
Yes.
prefer this one slightly more than the other one if we had to pick one. However, we
I
would,
don't know if I'm going to both of these say that. I'm not going to pick one. I'll just say, is there a choosing process? Are you going to ask us during the application process, which one would we prefer? I'll just ask the question, I don't want to show all our cards.
thank you very much. I think at this point, we just take a recess because not anything we start won't be done in 4 minutes.
Make a motion for a recess for the town meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Hey,
Meeting of the Board of Selectmen is in recess at 7:24. All right, it is 7:30. I'm going to call the special town meeting to order. First item of business is the election of a moderator. Are there nominations?
Nominate Jason Bowles as moderator.
Thank you, sir. Are there other nominations? Are there other nominations? Are there other nominations? A motion has been made to close nominations. Is there a motion has been seconded by Mrs. Menard? Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor of closing nominations?
Aye.
Opposed? All in favor of Jason Bauza as moderator, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. All right, I'm now going to ask the town clerk to read the town meeting public notice. Madam Clerk.
Town of East Windsor Public Town Meeting Notice. The legal voters of the Town of East Windsor are hereby warned that a town meeting will be held in the John Daly Jr. Meeting Room, Town Hall, 11 Rice Street, Broadbrook, on Thursday, February 5th, 2026 at 7:30 PM for the following. 1, to consider and vote on an ordinance concerning property tax exemptions for certain disabled veterans, surviving spouses and children, and parents of a child killed in action. Dated at East Windsor, Connecticut, this 30th day of January, 2026. East Windsor Board of Selectmen, Jason E. Bauza, First Selectman, Rick Laborious, Deputy Selectman, Heather Spencer, Selectman, Alan Baker, Selectman, and Bob Leach, Selectman.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I'm now going to read the eligibility to vote. At any town meeting other than a regular or special town election, or at any meeting of any fire, sewer, or school district, or any other municipal subdivision of any town incorporated by any special act, any person who is an elector of such town may vote, and any citizen of the United States over the age of 18 years or more who jointly or severally is liable to the town, district, or subdivision for taxes assessed against him on an assessment of not less than $1,000 on the last completed grand list of such town, district, or subdivision, or who would be so liable if not entitled to an exemption under Connecticut General Statutes, subdivisions 17, 19, 22, 23, 25, or 26 of Section 12-81 may vote unless restricted by the provisions of any special act relating to such town, district, or subdivision. I'm now going to ask whoever has resolution number 1 to identify yourself and kindly read the resolution.
Rick Laborious, 16 Church Street. To consider and vote on an ordinance concerning property tax exemptions for certain disabled veterans, surviving spouses and children, and parents of a child killed in action. I move the foregoing resolutions be adopted.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Heather. Any discussion on the resolution? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried.
That's the easiest one we've had in a while.
With no further business to come before the town meeting, I'd ask for a motion to adjourn. Made by Mr. Anderson. Is there a second? Seconded by Ms. Menard. It's non-debatable. All in favor of adjournment, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Town meeting is adjourned at 7:33. All right, at 7:36, I'm going to call the meeting of the Board of Selectmen back to order. We're now going to take up agenda item 8C, discussion of the speed camera assessment to include Chief Carl and Deputy Chief Murphy. Good evening, gentlemen. Thank you.
I gave you all a packet up there for the folks who don't have one in the audience, which is everybody. What I provided the Board of Selectmen is basically what the first selectman asked us, a couple of things. The previous Board of Selectmen meeting, we spoke about the proposal, the potential of putting speed enforcement cameras in town, the automated speed enforcement cameras in town. Did a presentation on them. It was not specific, it was more generic, because every different company has a little bit different nuance, but basically they do follow certain state mandates if we were to ever consider that. We spoke about that, and what I was going to expound upon a little bit today about where specifically we would potentially put these in town if they were passed. If it was to be passed, I'll put the cart before the horse here, the town would need an ordinance to approve this. I provided a boilerplate ordinance that Winchester, Connecticut just passed a little over 3 weeks ago. And with the acquisition of the new ordinance, now they're allowed to go out and find a vendor who's going to be able to facilitate this for the town. So that's in here. It is very generic, but it basically covers everything soup to nuts, what's needed through the state, through the public act or the statute. And then also in here, OSTA's mandates. We can't just put these up. We as a town decided we wanted to go with this and put forward an ordinance and then go through a vendor. That vendor would have to do a lot of legwork in cooperation with us, the DOT and OSTA, to determine where these would actually go. And they have to meet certain criteria. That's the last page here. I basically printed out what I cut this down. There's a lot of gobbledygook in here, for a lack of a more proper term. But basically what I put in the PowerPoint last time, they're going to look at areas for crash data, serious fatal injury, local poverty rate, vehicles per residence, average daily vehicle count, compliance with traffic stop reporting, roadway geometry, prescribed methodology, uniform enforcement rules, and stringent post reporting for this as well. So there's a lot of benchmarks that need to be met to do that moving forward. But before we went and start doing a deep dive into the data, if we don't approve of doing this, there's no purpose in doing that. What I did pull today, I spoke with people from T2 UConn's traffic division. T2 basically does cooperative training with the local traffic authority, which is the police commission, Chief Carl and I. So basically anything going into the road, changes in the roadways, modifications for whatever it may be, they do the training with the DOT. That's all the NHTSA and the OSTA, as well as T2 basically is a repository for all the information. So when an officer goes to a motor vehicle accident and they say, we went to, Southwater at, Main Street, it's going to say this is where the accident, and they keep that as a repository. So they have better statistics and data. On the plan I gave you folks, I believe on the second to last page, and it's pretty crude, but Jason Hughes, he's a retired police officer from Farmington who does this full time. He basically sent me some crash data, and we would do a deep dive with whatever vendor we would choose to find the best locations. What I did put forward tonight, though, and I'll answer again, like I said 3 weeks ago, whatever questions I'm capable of doing. If not, I can find you all an answer. But a lot of what we're proposing anecdotally is actually backed up already by the information you're seeing here. This is basically, we have a local version of this with our own CAD system. Basically, every emergency response department has their own, how you're dispatching calls and keeping track of those. We have a less robust way of doing this. This is actually from the state. And so the state's data is going to be better than ours. They have more money, they have more resources and people. So that's what they put forward. But if you look at what you folks have here, and it's, again, it looks kind of crude, but if you were to zoom in or zoom out of this, several of the main roads where we would consider these, I listed 8. There's not saying if we were to even consider this, there would be 8. It could be 3, it could be 5 or 6. But the main culprits are the ones that we get our complaints on, where we do our traffic stops on, where we have our accidents. Yes, sir. Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you had a question.
Oh, no.
Yes, sir. And where we're keeping track of where we're getting the speeding issues. Number 1 is Route 5. South Main Street. And if you look at the chart, which I put forward to the Board of Selectmen, it goes anywhere from basically the auction all the way up to 140. We have accidents. It's not consistent at one specific intersection. But again, this is not for red light enforcement. This is for speeding. People do go fast on that road. It's a dual lane highway. It's a state road. But we have accidents everywhere from, again, around the auto auction all the way up to 140. We know that 140 itself is notoriously a very bad intersection, as we've already talked earlier tonight about some of the safety concerns. Where those stretch, and we also have the high school there as well. So again, these often are used in school zones, and that would be a great place to slowing people down for our school zones as well. The next thing that put here for number 2 is Newberry. Now, we've had a fatal crash on Newberry. We don't have a ton of accidents along the route, but where we do have major accidents, and it's a huge uptick on the sheet, is at the corner of Prospect Hill, obviously near Walmart. That's probably the second one to 140 and Route 5 in town. So that's an issue. We also understand with Lincoln Tech and now with the Penske, and there's a ton of commercial vehicles. So college kids driving, souped up Subarus, commercial motor vehicles, and people on a wide open road, it's a recipe for disaster. So that would be a wonderful place for these to go. We also spend an inordinate amount of time doing enforcement there, and it slows down for a couple of days. And the second we get back off, people understand they go back down there now, because you don't need to have radar detectors anymore. If you have Waze, if you have anything, it says police detected ahead. And our guys are not great at hiding, so they find them really quickly. So it just happens too often. The next is Rockville Road. Rockville is probably number 2, which I hear in the community, hey, you guys need to get out there. We've done an inordinate amount of enforcement there. That's a long stretch of road. But as you can see on the map, you would see the map. It also shows quite a bit of accidents, particularly around the curve. So that would be a good spot to have one as well. that's a lot highly commuted road too. People don't recognize that dumps you into either Vernon, Ellington, whatever way you're going there. But a lot of people drive on that as well. North Road, that's speaking high, that can go all the way to Melrose, starting at 140. But where they shows most of the accidents taking place on North Road is at Prospect Hill, or 140, and at Broadbrook, the light down the road, which is, as we've notorious, I'm sure the residents know, is not a great intersection. So getting people to slow down between there. What surprised me looking at the map is turning on from there down to Depot. This stretch of Main Street has had a lot of accidents in the last, we did a 5-year look back. So again, on Main Street here, between 140 and Depot, we've had a lot too. So whether this would be used to slow people down, you also have the middle school there too. So you have a number of outliers. And then we sprinkled in 3 others ones where you have Rye Street. Rye Street is obviously a very long road, one of the longer ones in town. We don't actually have a lot of accidents on Rye Street per the data we have, but we do have an elementary school. You don't have the opportunity, I think, so much to speed between the school because of the stop signs in such close proximity, but still wouldn't hurt for consideration. Scantic, we do get complaints of Scantic. We don't have a lot of data to support many accidents, but the problem is Scantic is wide and it's long. So you're giving people the opportunity to speed. And unfortunately, we had a fatal there earlier this summer too. But we have sporadic accidents. And the other one is Tromley. We get lots of complaints with Tromley as well. And Tromley dumps you right on the 5 and particularly in front of the school. We do a lot of enforcement there, but we haven't had a lot of accidents there as well. So those were the 8 that I listed again, but well before we'd even get to this, we'd have to consider, is the town interested in doing this? This would have to be done via vote and ordinance. And again, the ordinance is pretty generic. It spells out what they are. It's an automatic traffic enforcement camera, basically what we talked about last time. Takes a picture, the first 30 days, that picture is taken of the license plate. One of the places we looked at several vendors. This doesn't do facial recognition. It doesn't take a snapshot or whatever else. It goes to the license plate, identifies who it is through the vendor, confirmed through the police department. The vendor gets authorization to send out an infraction ticket. Warning for the first 30 days, $50 for the first violation, $75 for subsequent violations. What the town would have to institute is basically a setting, how would someone want to contest a ticket? You need to have something set up for appeals. So we have to have some kind of designation citation officer who would hear these and some kind of mechanism to have somebody be able to contest their ticket. And whomever that would be and whatever that would look like, that would have to be spelled out. That's basically spelled out here in very gray, like they didn't do specifics. Again, it's boilerplate language. But it wouldn't take a lot of heavy lifting to do so. And then, if it was approved and the town said we want to move forward with this, then we would go, the chief and I would make sure we'd be working with vendors. We'd get quotes. We'd decide what's best for the town, push that forward for consideration to the selectmen. And if we do sign a contract and go with folks, then we sit with them and start doing the heavy lifting as where is the most accidents? Where are your speeding coming from? And where would it be most beneficial to this town? So questions, comments, concerns?
So in the draft ordinance that you provided from Winchester, they specified where, they specified generally where they would allow these to be used. Specifically, they say that you can use them within school zones, pedestrian safety zones, and other places within the boundaries of Winchester, provided that locations of such devices are identified in a plan submitted to the DOT. So we don't need to say, we like 6 of your 8 identified spots. We're going to build that into the ordinance and pass the ordinance. That's not what we need to do, right? So there's a question mark there.
Let me add to that. So before we ask you guys to go through the democratic process of saying, okay, let's push this to you guys push it to the voters and we have an ordinance and they push it to the voters to do all that other stuff. We're setting the table. The police department is setting the table to say, okay, if you were to do this, rather than insulting the voters or the residents and say, you know what, you got to pass it to know what's in it. You have to, basically, we're telling you these are the locations we would focus on what we have seen historically in town from crash, speed, and a little bit of traffic. If you guys were to put the ordinance together and it were to play out through the democratic process, they also have to understand that these might not meet all of the check marks for the DOT to approve. I don't think there's any other locations because these are the ones that are heavily traveled with the accidents, and it checks off some of the boxes. Understanding that some of them are residential, so I'm sure that we're going to garner more complaints from people that may live on Rockville Road to get a ticket as somebody on 140 or Route 5, right? Because it's in your neighborhood, and so
Just to push back on that anecdotally, when people talk to me about this in concept, they're like, please put it in front of my house.
right, and so we sit there and they're like, I live on this road because they're all the ones that we stop at 45 miles home. Like, oh my God. You also live here. You're also the one that called us 10 times this week. But aside from that, humans are humans. But people might show up in those residential areas. We're not hiding anything here. This has always been, you've heard me say it multiple times, this is a community decision. This is where we're focusing. It's a look at setting the table before you guys move this forward. This is potentially where it would be. And to answer your question, Winchester was very generic about it too. They had to be, because they can't say we're definitely putting it here or here and have the transportation or somebody come in and say, no, the parameters don't work.
But I think you and I are now on the same page here. If we took the language that is used or a variation of the language that's used in the Winchester version of the ordinance, and we also showed the work that you guys put together identifying those spaces, we're satisfying what the state is going to require in terms of that language, but we're also being transparent about where it's going. That's what you're.
Yes. But to actually get it over the finish line, we have to do a lot more work.
Right.
And the vendor would be responsible for that because they have some of the things, like, for example, we might be able to tell you how many cars go over through a certain intersection or on a road, but we're not going to be able to do pedestrians and bicycles. There's some studies that have to be done that we just don't have. We can get the equipment, but we're not going to do that. We would put that on the vendor. That's what I recommend.
Yeah.
So.
You currently have a flashing sign on Newberry from which you gather statistics.
You know,
How much money would this, assuming that warning signs and that didn't slow traffic any more than they currently are at, so you had the same traffic and the same speeding that you have now, do you have any idea how much revenue it would generate? How many?
I don't specifically here. I can tell you that the towns that implemented this so far are seeing tremendous numbers of revenue initially. But when you go through it, if you've ever seen one, they're well marked. You're coming up, there's warning, warning, warning.
It's shocking that anybody gets a ticket.
Warning, warning. Yeah. It is. I used to work narcotics undercover, and it's shocking that anyone would buy drugs from me. I was very successful. So when it comes to human behavior, everything's on the table. So believe it. So long and the short of it is there is a lot of warning. They're seeing a lot of numbers. Those numbers would fall off. We're looking for fixed, not mobile cameras. There are an option for mobile cameras. So like in a location, we would have to go back and do all this over the fixed locations. The idea is, okay, the intent is to slow traffic, calm traffic, and traffic safety. The result may be that there is revenue available. Now, that revenue available cannot be, you can't put a roof on a building, you can't do things. You can use it for funding the program, the municipal zoning appeals person, the officer, or actually the municipal employee, doesn't have to be a police officer, that's monitoring this program and assuring that third check. You can use it for traffic, roads, development, safety, anything related to road safety, equipment, plow, sidewalks for traffic safety, because one of the things is pedestrian safety. So as long as you can articulate that, you'd have to write and articulate that I want to spend this much money on this or this and this, whatever. It's traffic safety.
Years ago, ticket revenue between municipalities actually got the revenue from tickets.
Yes.
And it was ended for a reason.
Yes.
And the reason was, and at least in my impression, the reason was that speed traps and things like that would develop and it became just a fundraiser for
Yes.
the municipality. And it's important that we stress that information when trying to convince the public that this is a good idea,
Yes.
that it isn't put there to generate revenue, and it isn't put there as an additional source of funding for the community. What we're putting it there for is to save people's lives for the safety of the community and the safety of the pedestrians and motor vehicles.
Right, and so I think, yeah, you're not gonna offset any budgetary issues with that or whatever.
Sure you are.
Maybe it may be the result of some of it you do. But you could use it for, the one thing I neglected, I don't think I said, was education. So, one of the things is you put some money aside to teach your younger drivers how to drive and things like that. But yeah, it's not designed to like it used to be, because you're correct. If we go back to that old system, I'll tell you, we're never gonna have a budget problem ever. We'll
No,
just generate all kinds of.
Until the state sees all that money that they're missing and they change the law and take
Yeah,
a
right.
piece,
They're already looking at that.
right?
But so to your point, yes, but revenue would fall off.
So, but what I think I heard you say is that you could use that revenue stream to help with the enforcement.
Yes, you can.
So I can't help but think of your CIP requests every year
Yes.
include cruisers. When you buy a cruiser for speed enforcement, you also happen to have a cruiser.
Yeah, that's an interesting concept. I know what I've seen out there are Department of Public Works equipment. I haven't seen cruisers. I've seen.
Same thing.
Yeah.
If you don't have to spend as much on a
Correct.
10-wheeler, you can buy more cruisers. I mean,
Yes,
it takes pressure off the CIP.
yes, and you can pave roads, you can do things like that. It does. It will alleviate other areas, but it's not wide open.
Right.
It's not wide open to balance a budget.
Deputy, one of the things that you said that I think I heard right, but I'm not sure why I heard it, is that you need to report the findings to post. Did you say that?
No, it was just stringent.
Post as in after
Oh,
act.
so yeah, after it's in there, like basically how the program's running itself.
I thought you guys had to report it to your certification entity, and I was wondering why that would be, but now
So it's completely, so these tickets are civil in nature, right?
That's why I thought
They're not,
that
they
it goes-
don't go to the centralized infraction bureau like somebody buffing a ticket for a stop sign violation. This is strictly civil. It doesn't put points on the license. It doesn't impact your insurance. Again, but that's gonna be for the town voters to decide whether they want to go forward or not.
So it also came up the last time, there was concerns about the data, how potentially who has access to it, and how long it's held. That would be in control of the individual vendors. Typically, it's not going to be more than 30 days because there's certain state regulations on that. But it would be the vendor that your board would ultimately interview and ask and restrict and have conversations about.
but then they would, of course, be restricted in what they could do with that data, I would
Correct.
assume.
Correct.
and we could further restrict it through the contract.
Correct. That's what I'm saying. You would have, depending on what vendor you picked and the conversations you would have with them, you have some control over that.
Yeah, so, and that was my concern last time, and I'll admit that I wasn't sure how quickly you guys were gonna follow up with this, so I didn't do a lot of research, but I did take a look at a few other ordinances that have gone out there, and I kind of like the way that East Hartford went. They took a more holistic view of the whole, everything in surveillance based as far as cameras goes, and I'm not saying I want to copy that, but I certainly would take that into account. And then the other thing I was thinking is, as part of, and of course, we got a long way to discuss the ordinance thing, but one of the things I was thinking is in the ordinance, I would like to put a kill switch that kills the contract. If the vendor is found to be misusing the data, it's by ordinance, you're done. It's all just come get it out of here. We're done. I mean, that's how serious I want to be about the privacy issues and who gets the data and what they can do with it. Because I don't know. I just think in today's day, that's important. So, somewhere between Weathersfield and East Hartford, I think there's a workable balance there. And I mean, if you guys are seriously looking at this, I think we'll look at more of those a little bit more in depth.
I liked East Hartford. I like that you brought that up. They published it on their social media. They put it out there. They did, like you said, they went further with talked about noise ordinance or like all the noise, which we're not looking at, noise meters and things like that. They put it all out there. I think they retained a lot of control in the way they did it. I do like it, so I'm glad that you brought that up. But that's on you folks.
Yep.
When you work there, and if you talk, so we've already interviewed two, the deputy and I two. I had spoken to a third one at East Conference. One, I will tell you, him and I were in agreement that it wouldn't be our recommendation that they even came before you and wasted your time. Because you get pushback from, their cameras were already advanced to facial recognition and things like that. They could just turn on so I think, and we didn't like the way that they operated. So I wouldn't recommend them to you. But Prague has come up with 6 that they've vetted, and you guys would have control.
Do you know who the 6 are?
I don't. Okay. I don't know the 6 off the top of my head. I could certainly get you that information. Actually, you could probably certainly make.
I think it's important to note too, with the intel that we would be looking at, what we would be getting from this vendor is essentially a snapshot of a license plate coming back to, okay, hey, ABC 123, Ben Murphy, an 21 Chevy Silverado. Does this match? Yes, this is confirmed. This is active. Back to them. There's no background in regards to like social security number or anything down to a shoe size. We're confirming that that vehicle is still registered to that person and that goes back to them. But they also have, not NIBRS, Chief, it's, who are they using for confirmation? NIBRS? Enlet, thank you, I'm sorry. Yeah, confused my acronyms. But other than that, there is in no capacity, there's no circumstance where we would be providing information other than on a legal requirement, meaning by a subpoena or something.
You get a better deal if you put 8 cameras up instead of 5?
No, so the other thing is you got to push the vendors because you want to make sure that they're responsible for damage or theft or anything like that. And so the cameras are warranted and there's a difference in the cameras. You could find a camera that you got to ask them. There's difference in the actual cameras and the quality, and they're going to come in and say ours are better than others and things like that. I'm sure you guys would do your due diligence, and we're always there to answer those questions. But you wouldn't get any different deal. You might cover more areas of your town, and you might generate more revenue.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
You also generate more work.
You're also going to generate more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're going to generate more revenue for the company as well.
Yes.
If you had 8 locations versus 5.
Yes.
So I would think it would be more attractive to a vendor if you had a higher number of locations.
Yeah.
Although that may not be as attractive for the municipality.
It may not. I mean, so for the wintertime months, there's 10,000 cars that go down 140. If they ticketed 3,000 a day, and they said it takes 10 seconds which is no way, it takes 10 seconds to verify that the vehicle, so it would come to us. If they ticketed 3,000 and it went through, then our guys are looking at 3,000 cars a day. I mean, if, just a percentage of that paid, there's huge revenue out there, massive.
Is that the kind of ratios you're talking about?
There's 10,000
30%
in the wintertime,
but 30% ticketed?
maybe even more initially, especially on 140, because they're not going to pay attention. Those people, when they're driving, when they're going to 91, they're doing everything but driving. They're eating their cereal, they're smoking, they're hopping on their phone. They don't even know they're. So all the bells and whistles, I mean.
But if you're going to give 30% out a day, we might as well just write one out for everybody in town.
Well, you'd hope that.
I think that from my perspective, one of the attractive things about this is that it's a pedestrian safety, it's a street safety improvement. And by and large, I think the people paying that are going to be people who use East Windsor as a pass-through.
Yeah, so
I don't think it's going to be people who live
in Middletown, like 3% of the people were residents?
It was
It was a low number,
very low
because they do.
in there. They've reduced speeding majorly. And they collected in 6 months approximately $1.9 million. But again, that's going to dip.
Yeah.
Whether you sit whatever side of the fence, the folks of the town are going to decide upon this. I just look at the circumstance for us as how this is beneficial to our police department. Right now, we're down 2 officers. We have 2 people injured on light duty. When we go out with 5 to 6 officers on second shift and we can say, hey, go out there, address the traffic, they go out there, they do a hell of a job. We stopped over 4,900 cars last year. They did a really good job of traffic enforcement. When we're at bare bones like we have been and we're holding people over, we're not getting the opportunity to do that because we're going to domestics, we're going to accidents, we're backing up, Warehouse Point Fire and the medics on everything going on between town. It's nice to have this that we know that, hey, people are slowing down on Newberry. Again, I can give you an argument of why you wouldn't like it either, because Big Brother, whatever it may be. But I'm just saying that for us, it's extra eyes to where we can focus our efforts elsewhere. So
Well, when you think about North Road and trying to get out, if you're coming out of Winkler, trying to get on North Road, it's hard to get out because people are doing 60, 70 miles an hour. The calming effect of having that slow, like people are going to have a better experience driving in town, right? And that's residents mainly coming out of that area, where they'll be able to get out of there without, thinking that this might be the last time, So I think there's that side of it. It just calms everything down a little bit.
The travelers on Rye probably going to be residents.
Well, yeah, we don't complain a lot on Rye, but
Well, it's on the
complain
list.
against, we don't complain outside of a neighborhood, but we do complain to each other about how fast everybody's going.
Okay.
Somebody's complaining to us, so it's getting outside.
And I thought when you guys put that thing up, that was a contest. I've been trying to get the highest score.
I actually had to turn them off for that very reason. People try to get the highest score. It was interesting because people begged for that. We put it there and then they were like, why is it here?
Oh, I know that lady.
Yep.
Yeah, on the other side, on our side of the thing, we'd be happy to have it.
Everybody's anonymous, but it was like, wow, it's here because.
I had that conversation with that particular constituent and I specifically said, you asked for this.
Yes.
Any other questions or comments for the chief?
I just think it's
For the
worth
deputy.
pursuing. No. There are safeguards that need to be, as you pointed out, and as the board have stated, but it is worth pursuing. It is a force multiplier. I'm not so concerned about it generating revenue. I really think we shouldn't be aiming to extract additional revenue from our citizens through traffic enforcement. Hopefully that curve drops way off right after the initial period.
Couldn't agree with you more. Of the 4,900 cars that we stopped last year, I think less than half ever got infractions.
But if you stop 4,900 cars in a year, and you're talking about 3,000 in a day, it's at 900,000 stops if that rate held
Yeah,
on just that one road.
yeah, because they're sitting there, it's constant and you don't have the time. It's action.
I know, but
It takes a long time for a motor vehicle stop. If it's 3 or 4 or 5 minutes for a motor vehicle stop, this thing it's getting everybody.
oh,
Right, so that brings up an interesting thought. So we pass an ordinance, we then submit a plan to DOT. Can we amend that plan? And what does that process to amend it look like if we decide that having 8 roads is overly burdensome, even with the infusion of revenue, and we only want to really target school zones, as an example?
Yeah, you maintain control of that. Like you said in the ordinance, you can have kill switches in there or whatever you want.
from DOT's perspective, if we say here, our plan for 8 locations, and then can we decide, no, we really only want to do 3, or do we have to run that back through DOT?
No, I think once you get the approval from them, I don't believe, like you could say, well, you know what, this is too cumbersome and things like that.
All right, so we can do up to what we can get them to approve.
So just interject.
Plates, like obviously you're gonna have people that need the speed. So the police department, fire departments that go to these calls and stuff like that, you can enter plates that are not gonna get tickets when they go through. If there's a legitimate reason. That's what the person's like, basically, seeing, because there are legitimate reasons to speed.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh,
So,
I know a fire call is perfect. example.
correct. And it's gonna, you think about folks that are gonna get nabbed on that. We're not looking to grab, public works people or anybody that's doing like that. There's a human side of that can look at that. So once the approval's there, you can you have a lot of control, local control. You just can't do it without the approval.
Yeah, we can't say, here's the 3 locations, now we're going to do 8. That doesn't work, but we could say, we could go the other way.
Right.
All right.
But I would think we could just add, subtract after we get in there, add and subtract as needed, right? Because traffic patterns change, whatever.
Yeah, I actually think the most that we can get, I don't know why I believe this, but initially when I started looking at when SiteStream first came in with Andrew, I think the most demographically for our town, we could get 6. I think it's maximum. Because you can't saturate an area either. So.
That was gonna be my 2 thoughts on that. I think 8 is a very grandiose idea, but no city has anywhere close to that. Even Middletown, I think, has 4. They're in strategically put spots where there's heavily trafficked. And I'd also caution too, we don't want our town we don't want to drive through there to go grab coffee because you're gonna get nabbed if you're doing 10 miles per hour, right? We want people to slow down, but we also don't want to turn people off if we're making this a police state with our cameras. So you have to consider that as well too.
I would think, I'm just gonna throw this out here, if we struck the right balance and this all went through, and like I said, it's a local issue, I keep saying, I think you're looking at about 3 or 4 cameras.
Yeah.
Max, I really do, because like you said, you don't got saturate the area. Then you start to look like you're getting revenue. There's no way for me to go, it's people that want to go down Rockville, so they're gonna go, locals are gonna take a different route, there's no thought. Never gonna get behind Mr. Anderson, but I can tell you they're gonna go there.
I think he drives too fast.
I don't know about that. I don't know about it.
Yes, he can.
Look at your data.
Other questions or comments? Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. All right, let's turn now to the registrars of voters. Denise, good evening. Bart, how's it going? You guys had sent us an email, all of us an email. We want to go ahead and explain what you're.
The experience last year, I think it was the first time that we had early voting. With special election. And it costs a lot of money, and you can give the ballots to people on budget day, because it's the same day as the budget. We give them the budget ballot, and they don't even want the not really that interesting. Early voting, Mark, we had.
Tell the story. We got 4 days of early voting for special election. I think the last 2 times, one position, unopposed, unopposed. Guess how many people we had the days vote?
Probably none.
0. 0. Yeah, the staff, everybody, us. I mean, emails and stuff. That's very funny. What's the way? I would have come.
Yeah, it sounds like an exaggeration, how could it be that expensive, but we have to program the machines, we have to print ballots, we have to hire the people. So it's not just you show up that day and work. There's a lot of
work.
yeah, a lot of hidden costs for any election, and it's the same as any election for very little interest and
I think Bob, you mentioned maybe they can move that special elect for the fire.
Yeah.
That.
Makes more sense.
Those slots there. You already have early voting for that, that's
Yeah.
pretty well, I'm not against early voting, don't get me wrong. Federal election was a godsend. Good,
it's about half,
yeah,
about half of our voters came
but
from.
it's still, you know, it's just a lot of preparation for us. Thank God we have Carol here, Carol was good, and Gail Dane was, that was everybody passed. And he was able to land here for us, we speak. That's it, that's. Some good poll workers to come and help us out, but. You know, you can only admit so much. Special election. It's very. It's kind of overwhelming for us. Then break it down and then set up again and then pay. For 4 days.
I think we did talk about this issue a couple of times in the past, and my recollection is that the reason that when the original ordinance was set up, the reason that we didn't line up the commission elections with a November election is because in certain elections, you'd have as many as 8 different versions of the ballot kicking around, because the district lines for the fire commission don't follow the district lines for the legislative districts, don't follow the district lines for the voting places. So I think there's 8 different ballots that would have to be ordered and on hand in order to do that. I'm sorry?
How does Warehouse Point?
I believe they do it at a district meeting. Yeah, just a show of hands. That is a more plausible alternative than doing it with a November election.
Who do you want?
It's like,
Yeah, I think more people care about their budget than who the commissioner is.
Depending on the year, 1 or 2 are elected.
And they don't even want the job.
Require an ordinance change.
It does.
And how long would it take us to accomplish that to avoid the next election?
Oh, it wouldn't work. for this
You
year.
wouldn't be able to. Yeah.
It wasn't our goal to do it for this year, because it just doesn't seem practical.
The answer is, assuming we were hustling 6 or 8 weeks,
To election.
second Tuesday in May.
Could do it.
We could.
A little inconvenience in terms of the hustling on our part would make a $5,000 difference and just eliminate a wasteful spending of taxpayers' dollars.
Will you guys reduce your budget?
Would the endorsement of candidates play into that as far as them already being endorsed for an election coming up in May?
I think that would depend on how it was worded. So, do you have a charter? You do? Can I get a copy of it?
The special act and.
Does that talk about your elections process? Does the special act talk about your elections process?
Yeah, you have a chart. Yeah.
Because the easiest thing to do would be to look at that and emulate it. And I'm not sure you must adhere to minority representation. That's a statute. You don't follow the law for minority representation, really?
That's what he meant.
If you could just give me whatever you have, I'll work on it from there. So to your point, I think if there are nominations by the parties would be different as if it's a floor nomination. That does have to, certainly we have to follow the law. So that would mean that minority representation is a consideration.
I'm
So
not so much concerned about that, but if a candidate's already been endorsed for an election that's coming up in May.
we're talking about this particular site,
Yeah.
not just generally.
Right.
No, I think it would depend on how we wrote it, but I don't think that that's necessarily a problem.
And then to that point, we were unable to endorse candidates for the May election for Broadbrook Fire.
Because you couldn't find a candidate or because you didn't make the process window?
We didn't make the process window and I didn't have candidates, both.
You did or did not? I didn't hear you.
I did
Did
not
not
have
happen.
candidates and I
Right.
did not make the process window.
So this is going to be an example where we're going to spend $5,000 in 4 days of early voting for absolutely no reason.
I don't know if the Democrats endorsed a candidate or not.
Yeah.
Okay. If you wouldn't mind, that would be very helpful. All right, I'll try and have something back, I was gonna say for the 19th. I will try and have something for the 19th, but don't hold me to that.
We may or may not try to make it before the,
I think we can still make it. I mean, the quickest we can change an ordinance is 3 weeks. And that's, but you need to have the ordinance ready to go. The selectmen have to pass it, notice the town meeting the next day, and then it's 15 days after the hearing, after the town meeting.
we're going to definitely want legal review.
Yeah, that was a complicated ordinance.
Yeah.
But I'm happy to try, as long as you guys don't say like, hey, it's been 2 weeks and you're not done yet. What's taking so long?
No promises.
I think the biggest complication was in the ordinance was trying to work out the compromises and that were necessary to achieve that objective. Not so much as the language.
You're talking about it,
The ordinance for the,
trying to get it set up to begin with?
yeah,
Yeah, that was no small project.
that's right. That was a huge achievement, actually.
One question I will need to ask the attorney about is, we passed that at a referendum. So I don't know if we have to do it in the same fashion or not. I don't think we do, but I want to ask that question. It's an ordinance, right, which makes me think a town meeting can do it, except that we had it as a townwide vote to begin with. So I just want to check. Okay, going back to the 860 Rides Fund. So apologies for this. Melissa's out on medical leave and I don't actually have the MOU language. But you do see what the intention of the cooperative agreement between the town and the United Way is to be, which is to provide reliable transportation options for people ages 16 to 29. And the United Way is making a concerted effort to focus transportation access at that demographic so they can go to school, so they can get to a first job, that kind of a thing. I don't know what the deadline is for turning this in, although I know that Melissa asked me to put this on the agenda several weeks ago. So you guys can either authorize me to enter into an MOU with the United Way for this purpose, or I can park it for a couple of weeks and then try and have the MOU by then if it's not too late. We may miss the grant. The upside though, or the other piece of it is the grant is only for $1,000, so it's not a considerable amount of money. It's up to you guys.
I'm ready. I'm okay to go with it just because it is only $1,000. So, I mean, why miss it if people need it kind of thing? But whichever you guys want to go, I'm good with.
What would the typical language be? Or what do you think the language would be written as for the MOU?
Kind of based it myself. I based it on the FAQ that was in our packet. There's a lot of information there on how it runs.
Hmm.
And then typically those things are like pretty boilerplate.
Start date, end date, could be whatever.
Start date, end date, warranties for each party, that kind of a thing.
It's not an open MOU. There is an actual end date that goes, I know sometimes MOUs are just.
No,
Never.
I wouldn't imagine this is evergreen because the funding is coming from a pretty finite sort. I'm guessing it's pretty finite if it's only $1,000 a town.
I mean, I think it's a great opportunity.
Yeah, it did actually talk about how, somebody could come again the next year if it was refunded. So it implies that
It's an annual.
annual thing.
So they're individual, I read it briefly. It sounded like there's actual individuals that get assigned to this. The grant, because it says here, there's no limit to how much one single individual can receive. However, each town has an overall cap of $1,000. If you refer 4 individuals for $250 each, your town will have reached its funding limit. So we, as a town, would designate the individuals that would be eligible.
Or there would be some sort of a program by which, process by which they would be identified, yeah. So, I mean, what I'm thinking though is if you lived in Mill Pond, if you were a 19-year-old kid who lived in Mill Pond and you're trying to get to your brand new job at CES in Enfield, you could right now take advantage of the micro transit grant program, which is a $3 ride each way. That's a lot of rides for $1,000,
Yeah.
or it's a lot of people taking a couple of rides for $1,000. But if it's, if I'm going to take an Uber to and from the Hartford train station, it's not going to be that many rides.
No, exactly.
And I guess it depends on what the usage would be.
I don't think it didn't mention that there would be Ubers. It was like you can get a bus pass, you can get a $40 gas card per week. You could get, it was a third thing. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it didn't mention specifically.
I was just throwing out,
Okay,
this is
okay.
where, basically what I was trying to highlight is the micro transit is another
Yeah,
offering that's low cost, but this could, basically be a force multiplier. That was my point. I was just throwing Uber up. Plus I just got out of Uber, so price tag still hurts.
I move we authorize the first selectman to enter into an MOU. We
Thing. 860 rides fund.
with the 860 Rides Fund.
Is there a second?
Second,
Any discussion?
we'll get a copy of the MOU after you sign it.
Yeah, I can do that. All in favor? Okay. Tax refunds.
Make a motion, we approve the tax refunds at $614.44.
Second,
All in favor?
aye.
Opposed? Okay. Going to selectmen reports in just a second. I'm just gonna find it. Got a lot of red flashing. Okay. So departmental budget meetings formally concluded on January 16th. Actually, the registrars were the last ones that I met with. In the 2 weeks that followed, Amy O'Toole and I undertook a comprehensive review of all of the budgetary submissions. We conducted any necessary follow-up, any questions that we may have had, and assembled my recommended FY 26-27 municipal budget, which reminds me, I left them in the office. I will grab them for you guys before we leave. This year's recommendation reflects kind of a different approach that I'm taking, and it's based on the changed budget guidelines put forward by the Board of Selectmen. You guys gave requesting agencies a little bit more latitude in terms of what they were asking for, and so I didn't cut as much as I typically do to try and be mindful of what your guidelines to them were. I think we're going to have more work to do because of that, but nonetheless, you'll be able to get a more robust set of asks in front of you. On January 20th, I met with the legislative leadership of the Energy and Technology Committee in the legislature to discuss CROG's legislative priorities, with particular emphasis on restoring municipal control over the siting of renewable energy facilities. Under current law, municipalities cannot prohibit grid scale solar installations, which is a statutory constraint that we continue to advocate to have modified. On January 21st, I also met directly with representatives of the governor's office to advance this same policy priority with the objective of securing gubernatorial support for that statutory change, and formalize the role of municipalities in the decision-making process. On January 21st, also, I met with the school renovation project team, Dr. Tudrin, Denise Menard, and Jim Giuliano, to review the project status at that point and next steps. A public forum is going to be scheduled for February 26th, where we'll talk about where the project has been, where it is, where we hope that it's going, and then hopefully get some Q&A and feedback from the general community. Additional information on that will be forthcoming. We talked already tonight about the LOTSIP submissions, but the town staff and I have met with consultants from the Beta Group in advance of the preparation of that grant application, so that's moving right along. The beginning of the week, I was at a federal policy conference in Washington, D.C., focusing on regional and local government issues. While there, I had an opportunity to meet with offices of 5 of our congressional representatives, Congressman Courtney, Congressman Larson, Congresswoman Hayes, and the 2 Senate offices. And at that meeting, or at those meetings, several of them raised that congressionally directed spending requests are going to be a thing again. So the way that works, when the congressional offices put out the parameters for those, it's generally is a very tight window, sometimes prohibitively tight in terms of what our local approval process has to be. They have not yet developed what the guidelines are going to be, but they did give me 2 pieces of advice that I'm going to bring back here. First, we're going to look at the FY25 guidelines and assume that they're going to be pretty close to that. We won't know that, but that's a reasonable assumption. Secondly, and Congressman Larson personally reiterated this several times, be aggressive in your ask. So what that means is either at the meeting on the 19th or more likely on March 5th, I will have for the board some recommendations from town staff as to what those projects might look like that we want to move forward with. Be thinking about that in your own right. And we'll have to figure out, based on the CDS criteria, whether or not there are available buckets of money that we can submit recommendations to. Then we'll have to go through the town meeting process, because it's not likely that we'll be able to cover all of these without local dollars attached to it. So we'll have to at least get approval from the town meeting to move forward with the applications. That should line us up, if you think backwards from the due date, right? That should line us up with an application window sometime in April. And that's when it typically is. That's when they told us they expect that it will be. But I don't want to let the opportunity go by. I want to be prepared to have something that we can submit and hopefully move the ball forward on. Couple of community updates. We were supposed to have an ice skating event jointly held between Parks and Rec and the police department this coming Saturday. Due to the cold weather, we're going to postpone that, hoping to do it on Sunday, February 22nd instead. Consistent with the prior cold weather response, the Town Hall Annex will be open this weekend for an unmanned warming center. We are still accepting registrants for the Panther Plunge, which is a benefit for the East Windsor Fuel Bank. The event has refreshments, a bonfire, a couple of mascot appearances from local hockey teams. And if anybody is interested in participating in that, it's $25 a person or $100 a team. And you can do that through Park and Recreation. Tragically, I think I have a conflict that day with my son's basketball team. So I'll be thinking of you guys while I'm not freezing my... Okay, upcoming milestones. So also next Thursday, Dr. Tutrin and I will both be presenting our budgets and our recommendations based on where we are at that point in time prior to the public hearing that'll take place that same night. It's the first stop in the budget process. It's the first opportunity for the public to be engaged in that process. There are more opportunities for them to do so. Everybody is welcome and encouraged to attend. That's all I have. Rick?
I really don't have much except to say, thank you for the appointments to the various, liaison, positions. Last week I was out 4 nights. But I'm learning a great deal from the various boards and commissions that I've been attending. And what I'm finding is that we have a lot of very capable volunteers serving on those various boards, from the Housing Authority to the Police Commission to Economic Development to the Ad Hoc Committee. And those volunteers really aid in the process of governing a community. And I personally think we owe a great debt of gratitude to everyone who serves in those positions. All of them seem to be progressing on the issues that are and charge that each board or commission has. And that's about all I have to report.
Thank you, sir. Alan?
I have two things for you. Wetlands had accepted an application for and deemed it as significant to have a public hearing for a residential lot, which is not often, but in this case, there's quite a bit of wetlands around and it's in a neighborhood, so that's on Wells Road. So that will be taken up next month. They also had a conceptual discussion with another person on a lot in a sensitive area. No application on that yet, and that's pretty much it there. And then the pension board met this month on their quarterly meeting. The pension for 2025 made 13.47%, which was pretty darn good. The other part of the meeting, besides managing the pension, in our fiduciary responsibilities, we go through we have the Webster Bank go through all the 457 options that people have. And after a while of something underperforming, we vote to get rid of it and replace it with something that. So we did that. We got rid of one last night that was not performing for 4 quarters in a row. So overall, it looks pretty good over there. And as I think I've reported before, it's trending towards maximum funded. And so we cut back on our aggressiveness, but that didn't seem to, with the market, the S&P 500, and especially being what it was last year, didn't really seem to cut our performance down. So far, so good.
Good. Heather?
I went via Zoom. I went on the 27th, Planning and Zoning had a meeting. They had a hearing on the Thrall Roll property. And then also on the 28th, I zoomed in for the Water Pollution Control Authority. I've never been to one of their meetings, so it was a little eye-opening. So I'm going to touch base with Mr. Anderson on a few things on that. I'm looking forward to those meetings and just understanding a little bit more on it. And then last Saturday, I know we were all invited to the East Windsor Ambulance Christmas party, and I was able to attend. It was a great night, and I appreciate the invite. So,
Bob?
Yeah, on Thursday, 22nd, I attended the Agricultural Commission. First time I've ever been there. It was great to see the members that are actually using their decades of experience to help preserve the community garden. I was surprised how many people actually use that. Surprised learning. After that, I attended the Conservation Commission meeting. And I'm kind of amazed at how important the work is that they really do there. They did, I believe they had a proposal that they brought forward to planning and zoning for scenic roads and routes.
Okay.
But I don't believe it was well received by planning and zoning, so it's my hope that they'll continue to advocate for it. I think it could be a tool to help buffer some roads and be a tool to help us to maybe slow down the sprawl of solar. So anyway.
What was the PCC's objection? Did they say?
I don't know. I just don't think it was well received from, according to the chairman, it didn't seem to be. So, but like I said, hopefully they'll continue to advocate for it. And what was it, I attended the Board of Ed meeting on the 28th. Dr. Tudrin introduced his budget to the Board of Ed, which will have the budget hearing on the 12th. And see, on Monday, I attended Warehouse Point Fire. They've seen an uptick in activity in January with 164 calls. Of those calls, 11 were for fire. And I believe of the 11, 6 were vehicle fires. So Treasurer reported that their finances are on track for the year. I believe they're probably missing the mark a little bit on maintenance and repair, but they've got work to do in their apparatus. And then again, that's something you can't defer. You really need to maintain your equipment and complete repairs. So all of us depend on it. So glad you're in good shape. That's it.
Thank you. We'll turn to the second public participation, a second opportunity for members of the public to address the board. I'll first provide the opportunity to anybody here in the room and then turn to anybody online. Is there anybody here who would like to address the board? Yes, sir. Name and address, please.
Paul Anderson, 89 Main Street, Proper. I want to request that we figure out how to make those flags present properly. Different days, the flags are folded funny. Right now, the state flag doesn't show. It just doesn't seem appropriate. If we're gonna have the flags there, they should be presented properly. And I know it's a mechanism, but it should be looked into to see how they can be like they're supposed to be all the time.
Okay, thank you.
you.
Is there other public participation? Hearing none. Is there anybody online who would like to address the board? Hearing none. I'd ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor of adjournment, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We are adjourned at 8:41.